Good afternoon, everyone. Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge, and I'm glad to be with you this afternoon. And accompanying me is Nancy Jacobs. She was recently campaigning. She was running in the race that we're going to be talking about this afternoon. Unfortunately, she didn't make it into the runoff, but um, hopefully she runs again in the future. And will be voted into office to serve on the bench. She understands what the importance of this service is to the public, to the government, or from the government to the citizenry, we the people. She understands that very well. She's going to provide commentary today on a topic that we will be discussing. I am going to be joined also by attorney Candice Rojas Colucci. She will be on momentarily. We are scheduled to start at 5:30. And it's going to be a very important discussion broadcast. I take some of my time, free time, as a public service in order to inform the public of judges, because everyone knows, or particularly those in the legal community, including those who run for this office, they understand that the voters oftentimes mostly don't really have any information or any knowledge about candidates running for judgeships. That's why I undertook to, in around 2014 and 2015, I began as a lawyer to take of my free time to bring information about candidates. And I would, since that time, invite candidates to come on and be interviewed in order for the voter to become familiarized, to be able to get a glimpse, some understanding, vet them, because it's important. This is the third branch of our government, the judiciary. It's very important. Persons that sit on the bench adjudicating cases. Tell them a little bit about that, Nancy. How important is that? How important is that?
Well, it's important, in my opinion, to know your community, understand people that are coming into the courtroom. Everybody comes from a different walk of life with different circumstances, and it's important that judges that are hearing the cases understand and can relate to the people, and because judges, depending upon whether it's circuit court or county court, can take away even your life. If you're in circuit criminal court, take away your property, take away your children, and your home. So sorry about that. So it's very important.
Who wanted to weigh in, he or she?
Sorry?
He or she, depending on the gender of the dog, wanted to weigh in on the discussion.
Right, he or she, the judge, can take away anything that's important to you in your life, and therefore it's important that voters understand and pick the right person with the most experience and understanding and compassion for people on the bench.
Okay, so it's 5:30. Let's get started. I am going to. This is going to be a 30-minute discussion. I am waiting for Candice to jump on, but I'll go ahead and I'll get started. Again, Haiti Oropesa, thanks for those of you who have already tuned in to Florida You Judge. Please invite, share this broadcast even after we're done. Please share it. There's a early voting started today. Am I correct on that, Nancy?
Yes, you are. And of course, people have been able to mail in their ballots for quite a while now.
Okay, so what group is this, Nancy? You know, because you ran in this group.
This is County Court Judge Group 7. Hillsborough County.
County Group 7. There's two candidates in this race, Bill Yanger and Monique Scott. And I just want to say right off the top, Bill Yanger, I don't know him. I haven't had a lot of interaction with him, but I've heard good things about him. And I can say this honestly. Sometimes there are certainly persons that take the perspective, well, you're biased because you're bringing out negative things on this candidate. I'm bringing out things that are facts that have come out. Certainly nothing that I experienced, but are facts that are in the clerk of court can be found, these documents. And also there was an article that was not written by me, but by a local journalist, Chris Ingram, who brought this to light, one of the issues that I found to be very problematic in regards to Monique Scott. But let's just start off by one thing here. Monique Scott has been practicing law for 6 years. Okay. This is opinion. Certainly, the rules allow someone that has been practicing for only 5 years to run to be judge. Some people think that that's not um, ex- long enough to undertake to serve in such an important, serious role in serving the public because of the ramifications of that, the impact of that because of decisions that are made. In it, as like Nancy said, uh, in regards to issues regarding liberty. I mean, circuit judges in criminal divisions can impose the death penalty. So some people don't think it's long enough. Do you think that that's long enough, Nancy? I mean, how long have you been practicing before you
I'm
decided
going
to?
into my 30, I'm going into my 36th year of practice. And no, I don't think that 6 years is sufficient. You're young. I don't get whether you're just out of law school, from college to law school and then into practice, or even if you go back as a second career. 6 years is not enough time to really understand the legal system from the perspective of a lawyer, let alone a possible judge.
Okay.
And for the most part, people with 6 years of experience probably don't have the life experience as well to really be an effective judge, because being a judge is more than just about applying the law. Because if that was all it was, looking up statutes online or in a book and applying the law, you wouldn't need a human being there. You could just spit out the information from a computer. And that's why we have judges, because judges can understand circumstances, people, they can get a look at the people in front of them, get a take on what's happening here, and of course, listen to the facts of a particular case and apply the law. But every judge has discretion as well. And when you have that discretion, the public counts on you to be able to use your experience and your knowledge to apply that discretion to really to serve out justice, to make sure that the people that come in front of you are getting their day in court and they're really being treated as they should, and that justice prevails. And what's good for one person may not be good for another when you're in court,
What do
as
you
long
think?
as it's within the law.
What do you think, Candice? On 6 years, Monique Scott has been. Then there she went. So we're gonna talk about something because a lot of times, again, I'm gonna reiterate, the public oftentimes, I know that when I started doing coverage on judicial candidates and the judiciary, family members would tell me, I have no idea. They particularly ask lawyers because lawyers are regularly in the courtrooms. They're familiarized with the judges and their colleagues. So then when their colleagues decide that they want to run for judge, the lawyers have a pretty good understanding if they're regularly interacting and hearing about their acumen or lack thereof in the system. They can speak to when their family members, friends, people that trust their judgment, ask them, who should I vote for? I'm a little lost here at this portion of the ballot where there are judicial candidates. So, what do you think about the 6 years candidates? And before I say that, it's sad. We're celebrating this year the 100th anniversary of the right of women to vote. Okay, we're for equality. We have 3 women here on this panel talking about this issue. And I have talked about it before. I talked about it with Roxanne Fixon, she's an amazing attorney, an amazing human being. I'm working with her now on foundation she's working for that is doing something incredible as to informing the voters here in Pinellas County. We'll talk about that in the future. She's already committed to doing that. But I had a segment with her, a broadcast with her, where I spoke to. It saddens me sometimes that voters go into the ballot, they go into polls and vote based on gender without knowing anything else. That is irresponsible. Irresponsible as a voter. And women sometimes think that that's an edge that they have, that they do. If they're at the top of the ballot and they have a female name, they think that's going to get me just right off the bat a certain amount of points, and they're right. And don't do that. Don't do me that favor. And I think I can speak for Candice and Nancy. We don't want for you to go in and vote just because it's a female. blindly just vote based on gender and positioning on the ballot. That's wrong. It's irresponsible. So here's Monique's gonna have that advantage. She has a female name and she's on the top, but her opponent, Bill Yanger, is very well respected, and has been practicing for 35 years. He's earned his chops. People, so listen, we have a journalist, Chris Ingram, who's not a lawyer. He's a journalist. He's a talking head, has been on mainstream media as a talking head. Had he not done that, I would not have known that this person, who I had seen some of her campaigning flyers and heard throughout the local community, legal community, she was touting, saying I was a former law enforcement officer, police on the street. I heard her. There's a video of her on her Facebook saying that very thing, yet I had no idea until Chris Ingram let me know through a article that he wrote that she passed the police academy, was sworn in, and was only in a classroom for 6 days. There's 4 phases once you come out of the police academy and are sworn in. 4 phases. She didn't get out of phase 1. She only did 6 days in phase 1, meaning she was a holdover trainee for 6 days. September the 18th of 2006 until September 25th of 2006. 6 days in the classroom, never went out in the street. And yes, she is saying in her literature and in her videos, I was a police officer on the street, which is an insult, I think, to people who have served on the street. Okay, and I have done the actual work of a police officer, and with everything that means, and it is tied to that, risking their lives out in the street. That's an insult. But you know what? It's problematic that most people, except some attorneys here and there that I see on Facebook talking about, they defend her. And you know what? If you defend her, by the way, failed to mention, I invited her to come here this afternoon, and in the past I've invited, and she is failing to do that. This is a person that's seeking to sit on the bench where people are going to have to appear in front of her to answer to charges, civil suits, criminal charges. They're going to have to answer. She's going to have the power to hold people in contempt when they fail to respond or to testify. Okay? Yes or no? Am I wrong about that, Candice?
No. It's
okay. And yet she doesn't want to come. She wants a powerful gig, and she doesn't want to come here to answer to what we are saying. To what I am saying. And I didn't make it up. This is something somebody wrote. I am saying I felt lied to when I am going around and people are asking me, by virtue of what I do in this capacity as a lawyer, coming on a broadcast, giving information as a public service, free, out of my time, as a civic responsibility, obligation that I feel that I have, because I am indebted to this country. This country opened its doors to my parents who fled Cuba. I understand the cost of freedom and the importance of it, and the importance of having only the best of the best serving in our government, serving we the people. Okay? And she doesn't want to come here to answer these issues. It's very problematic. I felt lied to when I was going around and people were asking me, what do you think about Monique? And I said, all I can say is she was former law enforcement officer and she was a prosecutor. And when I found out it was only 6 days in a classroom, I felt I was misled as a citizen. Candice.
So we did talk about this before, and I have to say that I just agree about that part. And the thing is like, as I have not been on the show for a very long time, I haven't been able to discuss other candidates. Is that? It sounds like a little noisy.
Okay, that was Nancy. She was adjusting her mic.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, go.
So I would say that this is an issue that if it had come up with anyone else, I would have raised it, and I would have to agree, because Haiti, once you brought it up to me, I would just say that was an issue that I really took an offense myself with, because of the fact that it's okay to make a mistake, or it's okay to potentially put something forward, and when somebody addresses it to you, you say, listen, that was not my intent at all. And I'm sorry if I made it seem like I was on the streets, even though those are her exact words. And that's the part about this whole thing that upset me, was that if she said she would, like, there was times when she was just saying, I was a former sworn officer, which we've already had this conversation. Is that true? Yes. Is it misleading because a reasonable person hears that, thinks that you had the duties, a regular person would think that you had the duties and obligation of somebody actually as a police officer working the streets? That's misleading, right? So that part about it, I can understand that, yes, it was true, but with an intent to mislead. So that one can be more of a vague issue. But the part is that it did go further and became untrue when there was an ad that says, I was working the streets as a police officer. And she never worked the streets as a police officer, ever. And that is a very big difference of being sworn in and a couple days later, unfairly, I would say. I get it. It's very upsetting the fact that she was fired for something that was beyond her control, and something that I guess it was a medical condition, and she has said that is under control. And I get it. And there should have been an alternative for what she could do when she wanted to take that job on. And listen, that is honorable to say, I want and I'm willing to go through the schooling and put in the work to be a police officer to defend these streets. That I have a lot of respect for. The part that gets me is that there is no admittance of the fact that that was untrue, and it was used in an effort to gain the public's respect, because there is a high level of respect for an officer who's willing to risk their lives in the streets for us. And that's a huge reason why I would potentially vote for someone. Like, what have you done for us to show that you're willing to do what it takes to get it done and potentially get your hands dirty? Not meaning the fact, like, to be boots on the ground to do these things. That's a big deal. And so what I just didn't like, and not that, and I'm not saying, listen, you don't have to come forward. Our show, this show that you're doing, we're not saying that we're Oprah or we're Fox News. So if you don't want to come forward, that's fine. But somebody represented you, did come forward and defended that. And I would have just liked a little bit of just an admission of, like, listen, that was not my intent at all.
Or stand by it.
And to admit that, then to completely let it be brushed under the rug as, like, no, what I said was true, and I was all those things. And back to the experience, and I just had this conversation with somebody else before, is that there is no way you can fully ever research enough that experience in the area of law will give you over time. That's just it. They don't teach it to us in law school. Everybody should understand that. They really don't teach us anything. We have one class on civil procedures. There's one class that is taught on that. And most people don't understand is that unless you're a trial litigator and actually litigate, you don't understand how civil procedures work. Criminal procedures are extremely different than civil procedures. Absolutely different. And this is the thing that people don't realize too, is when you become a judge, you can be doing any of those things, civil or criminal. And to me, from someone who this morning came from a hearing where I will sit here and tell you the judge who sat over it had no idea what he was ruling on at all. And you know what? I did some research about the judge, and I found an article that said this exact sentence. With what he lacked in experience, he made up with political connections. That is what was said there. And it was very clear to me. So I would just say that there's some things that no matter how good you are, no matter how dedicated you are, and no matter how intelligent you are, that are essential, that only come from experience over years being in more than one area of law. That's important, especially criminal and civil. And like when we talked to another person running for judge who was a mediator, that was a huge deal that I saw, that I really respected, because that's what I believe that a judge should be able to do, is to stay in that impartiality, and stay non-biased. And so that was important to me that I saw. But those are things that I would just tell people to make sure that they're looking at and since we're questioning about in one particular area right now, is just to understand that those things are important.
Okay, so let me ask you
there are
this.
things that can only come with years of experience that nobody will teach us in law school. You can't just find in a book. That happens through doing so many different cases, civil and criminal, and then going, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. And that just comes over time.
Let me ask you a question. So, and it concerns me. I cringe when voters, because what they do is they
I can't hear.
put out the keywords in their campaign.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Hold on.
Can you hear me? Okay, so listen, let me ask you, Nancy.
Yes.
Flyers oftentimes what they have is integrity, honesty, experience. Those are nice catchwords, phrases for
Right.
the voters, right? They look at that, oh, okay, but do they really know?
Right.
How do they, real life moments that they've seen in their lives, in their practice, and how they've carried themselves? For one, we're putting this information out. You all make of it what you will. Regarding someone who was only in the classroom for 6 days, was terminated. I find a big problem with thereafter, because she was Tampa Police Department said you can't stay here. We can't keep you on because she had epilepsy seizures, which posed a public safety issue with someone that can have an epileptic episode while they're carrying a gun, driving a car. It could put the public in harm's way, and that's the antithesis of what a law enforcement agency is there to serve and do, which is protect and serve public safety. What she went on to do thereafter is to have TPD spend taxpayer time litigating it because she sued them in federal court and then she lost. So think of that. Let's go on to the new information that I received. Yes,
Katie,
Nancy.
I just mentioned two things. Not only did she say this on some, I guess your show or wherever she said it. She
didn't say it on my show. Never. She's never come on.
Okay, wherever she's on YouTube, wherever it was that she said it, she did say it there. And in the limited appearances that she made on the campaign trail due to her entering the race late and also due to COVID when we all couldn't really go to anything, she also made the statement that she was a police officer and that, she went to the streets and you should vote for her because, she's given back to the community. So she continued to say that. And only when she was confronted at a judicial forum there were only 3 of us at it. The 4th person in the race didn't show up. She said, well, I was a sworn officer. And that's when she started saying that. But that was the only time in public that she said, well, I was a sworn officer and I was ready to go in the field if I needed to. But she was going around saying that she'd been on the street and that's why you should vote for her, because she was a police officer and a teacher and a lawyer, which is, like you said, misleading. The other thing I wanted to mention is you and the other co-hosts were mentioning about having a diversity of practice and knowledge. And Monique has been a lawyer for 6 years, and all she has done has been a prosecutor. And she touts that she has a lot of knowledge of different areas because she's been in different divisions. Well, anybody who knows when you're a prosecutor, they move you around and you're in different divisions. It's not because you're so great or you're so wonderful. That's how they do it. So you may be in this division doing juvenile for X amount of time, and then you might be in misdemeanor, just regular, misdemeanor court for a certain amount of time, and then they might put you in felony for a short amount. So you don't necessarily get a wide breadth of experience in the different sections in the state attorney's office, unless maybe you stay there a long time. And she didn't. She stayed for 6 years. That's been her only career. She goes and she says that she does PI and whatever now. But I can tell you that the firm that she's working for, I don't think she's actively working. And she left the state attorney's office in January of 2020 on day 1, let's say. And day 2, she had entered the race. So at the most, she's been working. Then COVID came in March. So how long did she do potentially PI work? 2 months, 3 months? So she doesn't have experience in PI. She doesn't have experience in anything except criminal prosecution. And not even.
This is a good segue, what you just said, whether she has experience in that. This is what we're going to talk about today, which is an addition of what we've I've discussed before, which was what we just kind of
Mhm.
summarized. I learned recently that she, as a prosecutor, was handling a criminal case, prosecuting a criminal case, and that during closing argument, she instructed the jury during closing argument that it was their duty to convict, to find the defendant guilty. I have the motion for a new trial that was later filed by the defense attorneys in the case, Maria Pavlidis and Lily McCarty. And that was one of the bases that they put forth before the trial court in order to get a new trial. It is the jury's duty to find a defendant guilty. Is that an abomination? That's what I call that, because you know what? That's violative of the Constitution, of the law. And if you're arguing that as a prosecutor, that there's no experience there, as far as if it were up to me to decide whether she's experienced. That is basic con law, criminal law 101. Is that just like an out of control statement to make that before a jury, that it's their duty to find the defendant guilty? Candace.
So it's, if you know law and you're a trial litigator, we know that there are these golden rule violations. And so one of the golden rule violation in that scenario is the fact that you are not supposed to make statements like that, because what the actual obligation of a jury is to follow the law and to apply those facts to the law and to make sure that they're following the law and to put that heightened duty onto them and say, it is your duty to find them guilty. You have now misstated what the law is. The very, very clear standard and burden which is put upon the jury is to follow the law. Their duty is not to find him guilty. If following the law and applying the law to those facts is that he is found guilty, then that's one thing. So it's egregious in the fact that we as attorneys know that the way that the law is read, especially in regards to what an attorney can say or not say, in an effort to potentially prejudice the jury into feeling an emotional responsibility being told by an attorney, especially a state attorney, who a lot of times juries give more weight to a state attorney because they see them as representing the state to a higher degree, almost like have the respect they give to a judge. They believe they're being told that this is my duty, I must find him guilty, and that's incorrect. So it definitely is a misstatement of the law, which becomes a violation, which also is grounds for a new trial.
And you know what? They were granted a new trial. So it's
Rightfully
either she's inexperienced in having said that, or she knew she wasn't supposed to say that and said it anyways, which then it's not inexperience, it's worse. It's prosecutorial misconduct, because if you know you're not supposed to say that and you say it anyway, that's prosecutorial misconduct. And this is so experience, not gender, folks, not because she's a woman. Again, we want equality for women, but we don't want inequality for men. If the man is the more experienced and the one that throughout their career has shown integrity and a walk as a professional, that they're above board in the area of integrity and honesty, that's who you should select, not because of the gender. No. So
Haiti.
Wait, one more thing, and then we have 5 minutes left, and I'll let you touch upon what I'm about to say, which is even, I think, a bigger problem. Okay. Maria Pavlidis, the defense attorney, and Lily McCarty then file a motion for a new trial. And when it is set for hearing, and when the hearing is held, and that part of the motion is addressed, Monique Scott, according to Maria Pavlidis, which she had the graciousness of collaborating for the benefit of the voters, when somebody told me, not Maria Pavlidis, that this had occurred, and then I wanted to properly dispel the veracity of what I was being told, she was kind enough to send me the motion and give me a context as to what happened. She was the defense attorney and could speak to that, to the truthfulness of this case. She said that in court, when that part of the motion was addressed, Monique Scott denied having said to the jury that it was their duty to find the defendant guilty. The judge had to pull a written transcript and show her that she had said that. And then, according to Maria Pavlidis, she stayed silent. She didn't say anything else. So we have the misleading with the claim that she was out in the street as a police officer when she could say she was a police officer. The play on words, be careful. That's why cross-examination is one of my favorite parts of a trial. People play with words, and to the non-critical hearer, observer, thinker, she could say, I was a sworn officer. Yeah, that's true. But did you go out on the street? No. Here we are doing something that it's a violation, as Candace said, golden rule. You're not supposed to say that. It's either you're inexperienced or you know that you're not supposed to do it and you're doing it anyway. And then when you're called out on it in a court by a judge, you're saying that didn't happen. So again, either she didn't remember what she was saying, was not prepared in court to address an important case related to a felony, or she lied to a judge and then she got caught because the judge had the transcript to show what the truth was. Candace.
So as a trial litigator, I will say that it's hard to know exactly what was in her head. And I know what it's like to be in the heat of the moment and you really get into it and you're saying everything that you feel. And so I would say her not necessarily remembering she said it is something that could have happened to almost anyone. I would just say, because I think sometimes you forget what you're saying. Like, I think I would have said probably, I don't remember saying that. And if they're like, you said it, then I would be like, okay, well, so that's number one, is that I'm not saying that it's completely unheard of.
Listen, should she be, come on, listen, I hear you. And that could happen where you forget, you don't recall something. Should you be prepared to argue this type of motion? The transcript was available with the court. Should she not have looked at the transcript and become familiarized? Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And here's what I will say. And when you had talked about the other thing is it misconduct to make that kind of statement, or is it an experience? And I just have to can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay. She's having some difficulty. We have 1 minute left. Nancy, where'd you go?
I'm right here.
Okay, so let's see if within the next 30 seconds, 60 seconds, Candace can come back on and finish her thought before we jump off. Thank you for those of you who have been watching. I'm going to urge you, this isn't about me. This isn't about Nancy, about Candace. This is about the voters selecting the best candidate to serve on the bench in Hillsborough County. It's important. And don't think of it, how does it impact me? How does it benefit me? Listen, if it were you in a courtroom in front of a judge, if it's your day to go in front of a judge, and it's an important matter, and every time we go in front of a court where we're named as a party or someone that we love, it's important. It's important. You want the best of the best on the bench with integrity, honesty, experience to handle your matter. That's what you want. You would want it for you. You would want it for your loved one. So please go ahead and share, especially for those who will be voting in Hillsborough for judges, Group 7. It will be 2 candidates on that ballot, or for that race on that ballot: Bill Yanger, Monique Scott. This is important. Please share. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Candace isn't back. Nancy, I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So
can I say one thing? Can I
Of course. Yes. Yes. Where are you though? I can't see you. All I see is blinds. I think that's what it is.
Okay. I just would ask the people, your listeners, to listen to what Haiti said. And I've endorsed Bill Yanger for this seat. If it couldn't have been me, I wanted it to be him. He is the candidate to vote for if you want experience and integrity, and a judge who really understands life, as well as the law. So that's who I'm voting for. I already have voted for. That's who I'm telling my friends to vote for, and that's who I would ask you all to vote for. Don't vote by gender. And don't vote by race. Don't just vote for the best candidate. In this race, at this point, the best candidate is Bill Yanger, hands down.
You know what? And if you all, for those who are watching, if you Google and see the Times endorsement, the Tampa Bay Times endorsement, they went ahead and they endorsed Bill Yanger. And in that endorsement, I spoke to the other candidate who was in this race before the final two went into the runoff, Rick Silverman. I spoke to him today. He is telling all his supporters to support Yanger. So two of the candidates in this very race who didn't make it to the runoff, they are urging their supporters to support Bill Yanger. I am not here. I'm not benefiting for any other thing than for the benefit inside my soul that I am contributing in some way to make the system better. And when you have good people serving in these roles as judges, when they're people of character, of experience, of high integrity, I'm benefiting because I'm making a contribution. Maybe it won't affect me directly. I don't even live in Hillsborough County, but it's going to impact somebody. And you know what? We should all have that same desire to do that. And Candace came back, so I'm going to let her finish up her thought.
Let me turn off silence.
Okay.
So that was it. So the last thing I want to say for people who just don't understand that the legal system and the trial litigation is that it is very difficult to understand what are those golden rules of things that you can never say. Like, you have to literally shift through just thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of really like case law in order to figure out the things that cannot be said in trial. And that just goes back to the fact of, listen, I'll be the first to say there are still things I haven't learned yet, because the way to learn it is through that experience. So that's the thing that I kind of go back to. And for me, as someone who does criminal and civil, I can tell you they are completely two different worlds, like I was saying before. And so it's important that there's experience in both of them, because when you become a judge, you have no idea where you're going to end up being put. And they're being put in both categories. So if you're a criminal attorney and you have never done civil, and all of a sudden you're overseeing civil cases and you don't have the experience in it, which takes an extensive amount of time, it's very detrimental to the people that are coming before you. And I just think that I think that any reasonable person could understand that, if you really think about it from that perspective of the fact that no matter what, the law school's not going to teach you. It has to come from experience. And that's kind of my last thought, is to kind of think about those things when I know that we're focusing them on one candidate right now and we haven't gotten to the other candidate. And I know there's been an issue that's been brought up with why this is becoming questioned now, but those are things that should be brought to life and say, hey, you want to keep those in your thoughts when you're thinking about who to vote for. It's not just male or female. It's making sure somebody is sitting on the bench that is going to have those qualities to at least start us in a fashion where somebody is qualified to sit on the bench.
Okay, thank you for joining me, Candace. Thanks, Nancy, for also joining me in collaborating. Of course, always, Candace. Listen.
Thank you,
Nancy.
Yeah.
Next time you run, you are someone that understands the importance of what it takes to be on the bench. So count on my support.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And it was good having you on. Thank you for collaborating. We're all women that want equality for women. Yay for the 100th anniversary for women's right to vote.
Absolutely.
We support women.
Amen.
We support good women with of character, integrity, experience, all of that. We want equality, but we do not want for inequality for men.
And sitting on that transparency and being prepared for that transparency, you're going to put yourself in a position where you're running for something. That's massive.
You prefer, I hope, my word, Lord, I hope that our society values more those qualities than gender. Please. You do a disservice.
You know how they say about bad apples? Well, the women that do a good job, and good lawyers and good women lawyers and good doctors that are women, they want the other women to also represent them and to do well and to be people of integrity. You're not going to just support a woman if she's, not good. I mean, less than average or just not good. It doesn't serve other women well either. It doesn't represent the mainstream. It doesn't represent what most women strive for. So if you find one that's really not doing what they need to do and they're holding themselves out something that they're not, most women who know about it are not going to support that. We don't want that.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Okay, so for those of you viewing, Haiti Oropesa, thank you for joining Florida You Judge. Go ahead and subscribe on the Florida You Judge Facebook page. I'm also on YouTube, and so that you can stay tuned for upcoming discussions such as these. Have a great evening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.